As the battle over health care rages on Capitol Hill, any decision this week could have a major impact on Republicans' other goal, tax reform. Joining us is tax policy analyst at the Cato Institute. Hi, Dan. Good morning, Dan Mitchell. How are you doing?
I'm just fine. How are you?
So, Dan, one group that's been highly critical of the president's plan is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or the OECD. The leaders of the organization have been publicly criticizing the president and the plan. It calls, the group also recently cut its growth forecast for the U.S. for both this year and next year. What impact do you think that group has on the tax reform?
Well, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development is an international bureaucracy that American taxpayers subsidize. It's based in Paris and has a very left-wing, pro-big government attitude. And their studies and their research documents were very sympathetic to Obama's class warfare agenda, Keynesian spending and things like that. With Trump in the White House, the OECD is in a bit of a trouble because its leaders have basically accused Trump of being a racist and equated him with Hitler. And so the OECD, they want to keep their subsidies from American taxpayers going, so they better tone down their criticism of free markets and small government policy, because otherwise it's going to bounce back against them, which I think they deserve to have their subsidies from America cut.
Dan, it's Kevin Kelly. The predecessor organization to this was actually just a bunch of European countries, and they were doling out Marshall Plan funds. But my whole thought in this is that who cares? I mean, how would they impact or influence what we do? I don't understand. I mean, if we come out and we want to cut our corporate tax rates down to 15%, it hurts them because they have lower corporate tax rates than us. But so what do we care? Can they actually have any influence over us or our administration?
Well, in theory, the OECD shouldn't matter at all. It's not like American policymakers are sitting there saying, oh, what does the OECD say about this issue? But let's not forget that the OECD's whole entire harmful tax competition report is predicated on the notion that those bureaucrats in Paris should have the ability to harmonize taxes, which of course means always higher taxes. And there's actually an OECD so-called multilateral convention that if the United States Senate ratifies it, because Obama signed it, if the U.S. Senate ratified it, we would be obliged to automatically share personal financial information with some of the most corrupt and venal governments all over the world. So yeah, in some sense, the OECD is just a typical wasteful international bureaucracy with a left-wing attitude, but they're getting involved in the world of policy, and they're always getting involved on the side of bigger government and higher taxes. And again, I want to underscore the fact that the OECD's Secretary General and its deputy have both made really nasty, scurrilous attacks on Trump, which is, in theory, not the role of an international bureaucracy.
Dan, it's Lindsay Bell here. I just have a question on their forecast for future growth for the global economy. They downgraded the U.S. growth because we haven't seen the infrastructure spending or the tax cuts. So it's kind of like they're seeing two different sides here. Don't they need our growth? I know the tax cuts impact the world overall, as you have mentioned, but don't they need us a little bit to help their growth prospects?
It would be good for the world economy if America grew faster. Now, of all the things I'm critical of the OECD about, the fact that its economists get the forecasts wrong. Economists always get forecasts wrong, whether you're looking at Federal Reserve economists, IMF economists, OECD economists. It baffles me that any bureaucracy would waste money having people like me on staff to do fortune telling on the economy. What they should be focusing on, if the organization even should exist, it should focus on what are the policies that will generate more growth. That's why the OECD was originally created. But it's morphed into a typical left-wing bureaucracy. It's dominated by Western European welfare states. It's based in Paris, where I guess even the air is probably socialist. And so when the OECD does policy recommendations, in so many cases, it can't help itself. It promotes Keynesian spending. It promotes bigger government, higher taxes, tax harmonization. And here's the thing for your viewers to understand. American taxpayers are financing the lion's share of this left-wing international bureaucracy. The OECD doesn't get nearly as much attention as the UN. There's a lot more spending at the UN, a lot more political controversies, but on a dollar-per-dollar basis, it's probably the most egregious spending in the entire federal budget.
Dan, really quickly, where are we on tax cuts and tax reform?
We have to get Obamacare out of the way. And of course, you know the controversies about that. And there's a procedural and political issue. Procedurally, you can't move to the fiscal 2018 budget until you deal with Obamacare, which is technically part of the 2017 budget. But then there's the political side to it. If Republicans botch Obamacare repeal, and frankly, they're not even repealing it. This is really more of a Medicaid reform package. Unless they get that out of the way, how are you going to move on to taxes? And by the way, when they move on to taxes, we're never going to make progress unless we get this border adjustment tax off the table, because that's really sort of poisoning the well right now.
Amen. Dan, thank you so much. Great to see you.
Thank
Dan
you.
Mitchell.